for the world anew.
Welcome to Muffin Talk.
Shines a light to greet.
Kia ora and welcome to Muffin Talk. This program is brought to you by the initiative Titipounamu, Study and Joy. I am pleased to welcome today Professor Thomas O'Loughlin to our broadcast. Tom, a warm welcome and haere mai.
Hi, it's good to be back with you. It's lovely to see you.
Professor Thomas O'Loughlin is originally from Dublin, Ireland. He is an ordained priest and emeritus professor of historical theology at the University of Nottingham in the UK. His area of expertise are early Christian communities and the understanding of liturgy. Tom, you have written about the table, a symbol of synodality. When I hear this title, I think of two things: a place together to converse or to eat or both, and a community that is without any obvious hierarchy on the same level as the prefix syn indicates. In this context, I wonder what meaning does it have in the light of Corinthians 10, 1-5, where it says, "For I do not want you to be ignorant of the fact, brothers and sisters, that our ancestors were all under the cloud and that they all passed through the sea. They were all baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea. They all ate the same spiritual food and drank the same spiritual drink. For they drank from the spiritual rock that accompanied them, and that rock was Christ. Nevertheless, God was not pleased with most of them. Their bodies were scattered in the wilderness." Tom, do you think that Paul is warning his listeners here that they don't forget the reason why they're getting together as Christians?
Paul's letter to the Corinthians is always difficult to understand because it's like listening to a telephone call, and I'm listening to the person in the same room and they're talking to someone else, and I don't know what the other people are saying to them. They've got the thing to their ear, so I know what the person is saying, but I don't know what they're hearing. And so we don't know the real problems that were going on in the church in Corinth in the late 50s. But from what Paul gives out to them about, we can get a good idea as to what the problems in Corinth were. And the problems in Corinth seem to be two types of division. The first is a division between those who see themselves as being genuinely Jews because their parents and their grandparents and all the way back were Jews. And then there are those who are part of the community and they don't know what to call themselves. The word Christian can't be used yet. But are they fully Jews because they're now followers of Jesus? Are they only sort of semi-Jews because they haven't got a whole history and ancestry in Judaism? They haven't been circumcised. Maybe some of them have. Some of them have only been baptized. Is that equivalent? So that's the first division. And the second division, and this is something that would be found in every city in the ancient Roman world, there was a division between the rich people and the slave population, between the slave owners and the slaves, the people who regularly dined together because they were the nice people, and the people who are now dining with the masters because they're part of this new community that is founded on Jesus as the anointed one, the Christ. And Paul is trying to deal with both problems. So he's stressing, hey, we were all in the cloud, we were all in the sea, we were all in Moses because we're all in Christ. Now that's a neat way for Paul to say the distinction between whether your ancestors, and many in his community would have seen themselves as going back all the way to Moses and having been with Moses, walking through the Red Sea and following the cloud and all that, and then drinking from the rock when Moses hit the rock with his staff. But there are other people who are equally saying, well, I'm now part of the people of God, and so I'm inheriting all this memory. I'm inheriting these scriptures, but my only source is Christ. So Paul is saying, if you're in Christ, you are in the cloud. And if you're in cloud, you can now be in Christ. So that's the first division. And also he's very anxious in 1 Corinthians 9 and 10 to point out that it's not a case of people gathering to eat and then the wealthy going ahead and rushing with their meal and the poor taking the scraps. If they're at the table, they're one. There's only one loaf, there's only one cup, and so there's one people. So for Paul, the idea of a common table is a place where divisions are overcome. The very religious division of Jews and those who are now followers of Jesus but have no history as Jews. And Paul is very anxious to say, you're at the one table, stop getting worried about these things. He says that earlier in 1 Corinthians. You know, the important thing is to be there and be thankful. And then he's also anxious that there's one table, there's one meal, because there's one Lord. So the table is this place where all the divisions are overcome. And as you say, the notion of synodality is equality, but in the idea of sharing at a table, there is an inherent equality. And perhaps the hardest thing we have to understand is we're so used to using this word altar that we forget that was early Christians saying our table functions like, is a way where we thank God in the same way that pagans thank God at an altar for food. And so the table is a fundamental Christian symbol because it's where we're gathered, it's where we're equal, and where we're in Christ. And the table is the place of reconciliation.
And I also think that when I look in the churches, what I love is I have no idea what profession the person next to me has. If I might know it from if I know the person better, but even if I see the person every week at church, I do not know the profession, and I don't ask for the profession. And sometimes the ones that are poorer in the community are even dressed better, so you can't even see it from the clothes. They are all same in the body of the Christ.
Yeah, we use this phrase "one in Christ," but we forget that one in Christ means equality, and it's social equality, economic equality, and ecclesial equality. And that's often the bit that Catholics have the greatest difficulty because they're used to putting the priest up there, and then there's in between people and nuns and brothers, and then there's just ordinary people. But if we're one in Christ, then all the divisions are reconciled, and we just have different jobs around the table.
And that's what we talked about, that topic about gathering around the table. And I think that's usually not happening in the Catholic Church. In most buildings, the altar is far away.
Yeah, it's every Christian church has something it finds difficult to appreciate in Paul. And certainly oneness in Christ and oneness around the table in Christ, which are key themes of Paul in 1 Corinthians. This is the one that Catholics have the greatest difficulty with.
Well, in another of our videos, we are going to talk about what we do around the table. So now we have defined what it means to be around the table and to be one body in Christ, right?
That's right. Well, let's hope we've started anyway.
Thank you very much, Tom.
And it's always lovely to be with you.
Thank you very much.
Out there, heroic peace is calling. In the bonds of love we meet. For the world, a new day dawning and shine.